Months ago, House Speaker Mike Johnson reacted to President Trump's call for Republicans to nationalize elections. Watch this.
The president had called yesterday for a takeover of federal elections, to nationalize in some states. Is that something that you think you should do, that Republicans should do, take over elections?
The president is expressing his frustration about the problems we have in some of these blue states where election integrity is not always guaranteed. So we have to figure out solutions to that problem, and that's what I think the Save America Act will do. So we're working on it.
Thank you, guys.
No.
The Constitution clearly states that states have primary authority over the times, places, and manner of elections. Still, the president is pushing the idea while repeating debunked claims of widespread voter fraud. He made the comments on the podcast of his former deputy FBI director, Dan Bongino.
The Republicans should say, we want to take over. We should take over the voting in at least 15 places. The Republicans ought to nationalize the voting. And we have states that are so crooked, and they're counting votes. We have states that I won that show I didn't win. Now you're going to see something in Georgia where they were able to get, with a court order, the ballots. You're going to see some interesting things come out. But, like the 2020 election, I won that election by so much.
The Georgia ballots the president is referencing are connected to a controversial FBI search last week at an elections office in Fulton County. Agents seizing hundreds of ballots from the 2020 election. Joining us now to discuss is pollster and communication strategist Frank Luntz. Frank, great to see you as always. What do you make of this talk from Trump about nationalizing elections? How do you think this lands with voters?
Problematic in that we don't want the public to distrust the elements that make up our democracy, that there's already enough skepticism. And I'm afraid that for some people it's now cynicism. And that anything that really undermines our trust, our faith in the elements of democracy is problematic. The public does, a significant percentage of the public does distrust the way the elections are run at this point, because they don't believe that there's accountability. They don't believe that there's oversight. And that's a problem. But to add to that takes a problem and turns it into a crisis. And that does concern me. In the end, if you have faith in the way that people are elected, you'll have faith in your country, you'll have faith in the process, and you'll still have faith in democracy. But if we lose that faith, then, and particularly in this 250th anniversary of America, if we lose that faith, we got a problem as a country.
It seems that much of this, and also Republican efforts to gerrymander in a number of states, is tied to Trump's fears of what might happen to him if Democrats take control of Congress after the 2026 midterms. Why not spend more time talking about issues that voters really care about, like the economy, the ones that drive them to the ballot box?
Well, you know how much I respect this show, and I appreciate the straightforward nature of your questions and your colleagues' questions. But the gerrymandering, all you have to do is look at California and what the Democrats did there. Now, I recognize that they say that that's in response to Texas. Both sides do it. Both sides are responsible for this, and both sides should be held accountable. The Republicans should not have done this in Texas, and the Democrats should not have followed up in California. And we know that other states are going to follow suit. That's a problem. Your question about should we be prioritizing issues that voters care about? Absolutely. And the issue and the challenge for Republicans is, in a word, affordability. It's not a hoax. It's real. And the public acknowledges that fuel prices have come down since their highs a few months ago. But they still look at housing, they still look at healthcare, and they still look at food and say, I can't afford what I want and what I need. And that for the Republicans to keep control, which is very hard, history suggests that they've got a 90% chance of losing control of the House. They may keep the Senate just because of the seats that are up. But if they want to keep control, they're going to have to address this issue, and they're going to have to do it in a way that's meaningful and measurable so that the voters themselves feel that their quality of life and their standard of living is improved today from what it was a year ago. Otherwise, based on what history tells us, in every off-year election, the party that's out of power comes back into power, or at least gains a lot more seats.
We've had multiple conversations about how affordability and the economy are going to be principal drivers. I wonder about some of the other sort of issues in the orbit, things like immigration. A recent Fox News poll showed that the president's approval rating on that issue is now underwater. And beyond that, there's also the question of the Epstein files. A lot of folks are very upset that DOJ recently announced that there's not going to be further prosecution based on this release of 3.5 million documents as of last week. Do those make enough waves in November? Is there something there for either party to capitalize on?
The only reason why the Republicans should feel any sense of hope for Election Day is that the Democrats are more unpopular now than they have ever been. That the polling numbers for the party, it's gotten a little bit better over the last few weeks. But for the most part, the Democratic numbers are the worst in their modern history. So the Republicans are doing badly. The Democrats are doing even worse. And that's why we don't know what's going to happen on Election Day. The party that can present that it has a meaningful, measurable plan of action, a detailed plan of action to make things better for the average individual, that's the party that wins in November, even with the historic trends that do benefit the Democrats. But in the end, it's going to require a direct, looking straight at the camera, a direct approach that acknowledges that the public is mad, that they feel worse off today than they did a year ago, and that they want fundamental change. They want an impact that makes a difference in their lives. And right now, it's a jump ball because neither party is succeeding.
Frank Luntz, always great to get your perspective. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.